morning, students. In the last class we have discussed about Rutherford's model of atom. Because that model had some limitations, some failures, another model was given, okay, to overcome all that. So the next model was Bohr's model of atom. Okay, first we are going to discuss the postulates, very important. From here the base of the chapter begins. Yeah, the first one, the atom consists of the heavy positively charged nucleus in the center. That was also given by Rutherford, nothing new. This is positively charged nucleus. It is the same thing like Rutherford had given. This was not new. Then further what? The next postulate says electrons revolve around the nucleus in the definite circular orbits. We can say in the fixed circular orbits. Definite or fixed circular orbits. This is different. In Rutherford, what was there? Around the nucleus, electrons are present. They are just revolving. He did not fix the position of the electron. Anywhere the electrons can be present. Nucleus is there around that, anywhere the electron can be present. But according to Bohr, the electron cannot be present anywhere. It has been assigned some place. Like he said that there are some levels. These are the energy levels. He called this as energy level. Actually, there is one more postulate in that I will discuss. These are the energy levels. This was 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the orbits he named them as. The circular orbits, he named that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 up to what? Up to infinity it goes. They were also numbered as K, L, M, N and so on. Okay, they were also numbered K, L, M, N, O, P. Like that it goes on. So the electrons revolve around the nucleus in the definite circular orbits. Definite circular orbits, they cannot be present here. They cannot be present here. Its position is fixed. And he called these orbits as N. And he gave different values to it. N is equal to 1, N is equal to 2, N is equal to 3, up till infinity he called. Or these orbits can also be named as K, L, M, N, O, P up to infinity. Clear? Next postulate. It says as long as electron remains in one orbit, its energy is fixed. It possesses fixed energy. That is why he called these orbits as stationary orbits. These orbits were termed as stationary orbits, or they were also called as energy levels, energy shells. These were the various names: energy level, energy shell. Okay, so it is not the energy of the electron. In that orbit, the energy is fixed. In that orbit, if the electron is present, it will possess this much energy. If it is present in the second orbit, it will have this energy. It cannot have any other energy of its own. So we can say that energy is quantized. There is one term we do use here. It is quantized. Quantized means fixed. It can have only these permissible values, not any other value. Is it clear, children? Still we have to discuss the postulates. You can note down this so that I can write the next. See, now the next postulate. It says energy is emitted or absorbed only when electron jumps from one orbit to another. Now in the third postulate we said as long as it is in one orbit, its energy is fixed. Suppose it is absorbing energy, it will jump to the next orbit, the higher orbit. It cannot remain there forever. It has to come back to the normal state to get the stability. So while coming back, energy will be released. How much energy should be absorbed, how much energy is released, that is given by the relation delta E is equal to E2 minus E1. This I will be discussing once I also discuss the values of the energies. Suppose it is there in the first orbit. It absorbs the energy equal to the difference of the energy of 2 and 1. Then it will jump to the second. Suppose it is absorbing energy lesser than that difference, it will not be able to jump. It will remain there itself. Because I said in each orbit energy is fixed. Okay. This we will discuss further also. Next postulate, children. It says angular momentum possessed by the electron in a particular orbit is quantized. Again we are using that term, quantized. Quantized means fixed. Like it says, it's very very important, children, very very important. You have the formula for angular momentum, mvr is equal to nh by 2 pi. It's integral multiple of h by 2 pi. This is angular momentum, mvr. M is what? Mass of electron. This is mass of electron. V is velocity of the electron. Velocity of the electron. R, the radius of the orbit. Which orbit it is present. So each orbit will have a fixed value for angular momentum. So angular momentum can have integral multiples of h by 2 pi. It's a whole number multiple. You can also say n is what? N is the orbit. You can also say that n is orbit. Now what is h? As of now you can only learn its value. N is Planck's constant. Planck's constant value is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. Joule second. Don't make a mistake of joule per second. If I want to write in ergs, it will be 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 27 ergs second. This is the h value. Now, further, suppose it is saying angular momentum is quantized. Suppose a question is asked in MCQ, what is the angular momentum in the first orbit? We will change the n value as 1. So, what are the values it can have? It can have the value in the first orbit as h by 2 pi. Second orbit, 2h by 2 pi. Third orbit, 3h by 2 pi. It cannot have any other value as 0.5h by 2 pi, 1.5. That is not allowed. Because it is saying it is quantized. It is fixed. This is very very important. You will find some questions based on this in MCQs. So on. Okay. For infinite orbits, it will be like this. Next. Sixth postulate. It says that while revolving electron, the electrostatic force between nucleus and electron provides centripetal force. When the electron is revolving around the nucleus, from where does it get that force? It gets from the between plus nucleus and the electron, there is electrostatic force. That electrostatic force provides the centripetal force. So which is, allowing the electron to move without getting attracted towards the nucleus. So there was a formula also given. It says that the electrostatic force is equal to the centripetal force. So this constant was given. Electrostatic force is given like this: 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 by R square. is equal to centripetal force is given by mv square by r. See, if this is the nucleus and the electron is revolving around the nucleus, it is moving with some velocity, say v. The mass of the electron is m, and if the radius is r, then the centripetal force is mv square by r. And if I assume these two, nucleus and the electron, as q1 and q2, two charges, they are oppositely charged. So because they are oppositely charged, there will be force of attraction between the two. So what is the charge on the electron? We know the charge on the electron is E minus E. What is the charge in the nucleus? There is proton. What is the charge on the proton? Plus E. But depending upon the atomic number, we have to multiply with Z. That means what is the charge in the nucleus? It is, we can write this as Z into E, of course with a plus charge because that is positive. But here, while considering, we do not write the charges. So instead of writing Q1 and Q2, I can also write one charge as E instead of Q2. Instead of Q1, I can write ZE. What is ZE? Now onwards, we will call this ZE as nuclear charge. We will call this as nuclear charge. So there can be a relation. Children, I am writing this relation here. I am writing this relation, that is electrostatic force is equal to the centripetal force. What is electrostatic force? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into ZE square, I will write now, by R square is equal to mv square by R. Okay. He also gave some formulas, for the radius, velocity and energy, that we will write this now. You can note down this. See, now we will write the formula for the radius, velocity and energy. See, radius formula he had given Rn, I am writing, that is nth orbit. Regarding the calculation and the derivation part, I will take in the next video. Rn is equal to 0.529 angstrom. Let me write this constant here, n square by z into a naught. This is the formula for the radius, where n is orbit, z is atomic number. Okay, suppose we have to calculate for hydrogen atom. For hydrogen atom, we want to calculate what is the radius. For 3 orbits, we will write. We will write like this: R1 is equal to 0.529 into 1 square, first orbit, by 1 angstrom. You can calculate yourself. Second orbit, children, here you will write 0.529 into n is again now 2 square, second orbit, hydrogen 1, a naught. You can solve it and write R3, third orbit, 0.529 into 3 square. Whichever orbit they ask you, you will just put the values for m. For whichever atom they ask, actually it is applicable only for one electron species. Like you can be asked for helium ion, you can be asked for lithium ion or beryllium ion. You can be asked to find the ratio of radii of first and second orbit, or which orbit of hydrogen will be equal to that particular orbit for helium. Like that questions can be free. Next, we are discussing here velocity formula. Velocity formula, children, is like this: 2.18 into 10 to the power 8 into z by n. This is centimeter per second. You can just put the n values and calculate. I'll write down for 2 orbits. If I want to calculate again for hydrogen atom, I will write like this: velocity of the first orbit will be 2.18 into 10 to the power 8 into 1 by 1. Centimeter per second, of course, you will be writing the same unit. Second orbit, if we have to write, we will write as 2.18 into 10 to the power 8. Z is 1 for the second orbit. Means what are you concluding here? As you are moving away, as the n orbit is n value is increasing, the velocity possessed by the electron is decreasing. The first orbit velocity is maximum. See, this is the denominator part is increasing. You can be asked, write down the ratio of the velocity possessed by the electron in the first orbit and the second orbit. Like even here, for one electron species only it is asked. Now we will write one more formula. We will be writing energy formula. I am writing here as of now only energy, kinetic potential we will be taking in the calculations part, right? En, this is minus 13.6 electron volt into Z square by N square. Z square by N square. So if I have to write down for first, I will write down for 5 orbits. E1 will be equal to minus 13.6 electron into 1 divided by 1 square only. That means this much electron volt only for the first orbit. Let me rub this off. Second, if you put the value, you will write down this as 1. This you will write as second orbit, 2 square. You will get the answer as 3.4 electron volt. Likewise, if you continue for the third orbit, you will get the answer as minus 1.51 electron volt. For the fourth orbit, you will put the n value as 4 square. Now finally, it will be equal to minus 0.85 electron volt. And for the fifth orbit, it is minus 0.54. What you are observing is, as you are moving away from the nucleus, N1 is the first orbit, second, third, fourth, fifth and so on. As we move away from the nucleus, what is happening to the energy difference? Check. The energy difference is 10.2 electron volt. This is still less, 1 point something. This is again less. This is one major conclusion. As you move away from the nucleus, energy gap between the two levels or two orbits decreases. One very, very important question. If the electron has to jump, at least 10.2 electron volt is required. If the electron has to jump, at least 10.2 electron volt will be required. If 8, 9 or some lesser than that energy is provided, electron will remain there itself. Okay, because we have studied to jump, how much energy is required? E2 minus E1. If we want to remove the electron from here to infinite level, we have to give the energy equal to infinite minus E1. Okay, so what is E infinite? We know E infinite, children, is equal to 0. As you move away from the nucleus, the energy possessed by the electron increases. Okay, it is increasing. So we will discuss some more questions in the next video. You can note down this.